This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Education is a disaster. Organized education is a disaster. In fact, organized education today, the typical university experience, is a fraud. It is 100% a fraud. Tenured professors making a ton of money and students being stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt by the time they get out, with frankly their best hopes for a steady job is to serve you a latte at Starbucks. It is absolutely terrible. Now, I'm starting to hear a little, there's this old song by Lou Reed. I think it was called Vicious. I'm kind of hearing that humming in my head right now. You know, that there's some people out there right now that say, God, Mike, this sounds vicious. Yeah, I think Lou kind of has it right. It is vicious. It's a vicious system that has created a situation where millions of people think if they go and sit through those classes at the university for 4 years, listening to these professors who have never made a dime in their life, that when they get out, they'll be in a good position, a better position to make money. It's nonsensical. Look, there's a great website out there called of2minds.com, and there's an essay on there about the current generation. I think it's actually my generation, 30, 40 somethings. And basically, it just lays out the case that with the up and down nature of the dot-com bubble, the '08 real estate crisis, and most likely the bubble that we're in right now, if you've relied on the system to take care of you, you go to college and get out and get a steady job, man, you've gotten your tail handed to you. Handed to you. But people don't want to talk about this. My theory is the moment that the U.S. stock market takes a prolonged dip, not just from October of '08 to March of '09, not a few months, but the moment the U.S. stock market takes a prolonged dip, when people realize that there's no cavalry coming to save them, that's when the dam will break. But for right now, I want to use some excerpts that I have found to make my point a little bit more about education. The first excerpt is from the guy who started Fiji Water. And what he talks about is fantastic because he talks about traveling. And he talks about something that I know very well in my life about traveling and the advantages that you find by traveling alone. Fantastic excerpt. Listen to it. And if you don't have time in your life to live it, sure as heck make sure your kids or your grandkids live it just the way that he says it.
Today we have one of the greatest entrepreneurs you've probably never heard of. His name is David Gilmour. David Gilmour has started or been involved in starting more than 10 companies in your life. You've had really a remarkable life. You've lived in many parts of the world. You've known presidents, celebrities, from Ernest Hemingway to Errol Flynn. You live on 3 charmed islands of Manhattan, Palm Beach, and Fiji. And as I mentioned before, you've started 10 companies or played a role in starting those companies, from Trizec Han, the real estate empire, to Barrick Gold, the largest gold mining company, to your latest, or one of your latest, Zinio, which is one of the top iTunes applications, has more than 5,000 magazines or publications represented, and you've really become a leader in the tech space. A remarkable portfolio of companies, and you've now written a book really offering some lessons to other entrepreneurs about lessons from your own life, your successes, and your failures. So welcome. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and specifically, you grew up in Toronto in Canada, and your father offered you a choice when you were younger that I think played a big role in what would follow. Tell me about that.
That was really the tipping point and what determined me to become an entrepreneur. And as I say in the book, entrepreneurs are not born, they're born of life's experiences. And at age 16, my father called me into his study and said, "Son, I got a choice for you to make in the next 24 hours. You're 16, you're not a very good student, and I think it would be helpful if you had some experience traveling. So from 16 to 25, you can travel every summer on $10 a day and see the world, or when you're 25, I'll leave you a little bit of money, a very small amount, to start a small business." So I chose travel, and that was the decision I loved. But there was one caveat. He said, "Son, if I ever catch you traveling with a friend, boy or girl, the deal is off."
So you had to be alone.
Yeah, had to be alone. So I thought, well, maybe he's trying to get rid of me. But it was the wisest decision, of course, because today when I'm in Europe with my wife, Jill, and I see these packs of kids and traveling in a pack, they may as well have stayed at home because they sit around a cafe and talk to each other. The fact that I was alone, I became an observer. I was listening when I'd rather be speaking. I saw the trends and mannerisms and needs and wants of people, and it introduced me to people that I'd never have met, because if I'd been sitting there with a friend, nobody would interrupt me. But because I was alone, that was how I met so many people. They'd see me alone. I'd have my standard uniform of white jeans, a blazer, and a white shirt, and they'd say, "Fairly presentable. Come on over. Are you alone? Would you join me for a drink?" And sometimes it ended up 2 weeks later, I saw things and met people that I never would have otherwise.
And so being an observer when you'd rather be talking, you think that helped you really in your career as an entrepreneur?
Yes, because I think an entrepreneur, or at least with the career that I had, was being able to spot a phenomena, an emerging trend, before it happened. And in your own mind, you have such focus and feeling and passion about it that somehow it usually works.
Just brilliant wisdom. Brilliant wisdom. And I see it all the time. Now, at least in my current life, I see it all the time. Expats, Westerners, so caught up in their little circle that they miss out on the greater learning experience. The second excerpt I want to play is from a TED Talk, TED.com. This is Ken Robinson, who speaks about education quite a bit. And he's talking about curiosity. And that's the engine. But for many reasons, we're not there. And the teachers are just not doing it.
If you can light the spark of curiosity in a child, they will learn without any further assistance very often. Children are natural learners. It's a real achievement to put that particular ability out or to stifle it. Curiosity is the kind of engine of achievement. Now, the reason I say this is because one of the effects of the current culture here, if I can say so, has been to deprofessionalize teachers. There is no system in the world or any school in the country that's better than its teachers. Teachers are the lifeblood of the success of schools. But teaching is a creative profession. Teaching properly conceived is not a delivery system. You know, you're not there just to pass on received information. Great teachers do that. But what great teachers also do is mentor, stimulate, provoke, engage. You see, in the end, education is about learning. If there's no learning going on, there's no education going on. And people can spend an awful lot of time discussing education without ever discussing learning. The whole point of education is to get people to learn. A friend of mine, old friend, actually very old, he's dead. That's as old as it gets, I'm afraid. So, but a wonderful guy, he was a wonderful philosopher. He used to talk about the difference between the task and achievement senses of verbs. You know, you can be engaged in the activity of something, but not really be achieving it. It's like dieting. It's a very good example, you know. There he is, he's dieting. Is he losing any weight? Not really. Teaching is a word like that. You can say, there's Deborah, she's in room 34, she's teaching. But if nobody's learning anything, she may be engaged in the task of teaching, but not actually fulfilling it. The role of a teacher is to facilitate learning. That's it. And part of the problem is, I think, that the culture of, the dominant culture of education has come to focus on not teaching and learning, but testing. Now, testing is important. Standardized tests have a place. But they should not be the dominant culture of education. They should be diagnostic. They should help. You know, if I go for a medical examination, I want some standardized tests. I do. You know, I want to know what my cholesterol level is compared to everybody else's on a standard scale. I don't want to be told on some scale my doctor invented in the car. You know, your cholesterol is what I call level orange. Really? Is that good? We don't know. But all that should support learning. It shouldn't obstruct it, which of course it often does. So in place of curiosity, what we have is a culture of compliance. Our children and teachers are encouraged to follow kind of routine algorithms rather than to excite that power of imagination and curiosity. And the third principle is this, that human life is inherently creative. It's why we all have different resumes. We create our lives, and we can recreate them as we go through them. It's the common currency of being a human being. It's why human culture is so interesting and diverse and dynamic. I mean, other animals may well have imaginations and creativity, but it's not so much in evidence, is it, as ours. I mean, you may have a dog, you know, and your dog may get depressed. You know, but it doesn't listen to Radiohead, does it? And sits staring out the window with a bottle of Jack Daniels. And you say, would you like to come for a walk? He said, no, I'm fine. No. You go. I'll wait, I'll go. But take pictures. We all create our own lives through this restless process of imagining alternatives and possibilities, and one of the roles of education is to awaken and develop these powers of creativity. Instead, what we have is a culture of standardization.
I love that last bit he says. We create our own lives through the restless process of imagining alternatives and possibilities. That's it. It's not about following the rules. It's not about doing what you're told. That's the life of just death. A rote job. I mean, look, automation, whether it's robotic or software, is eliminating blue-collar and white-collar jobs at such an accelerated pace. There's no hanging on. I mean, it's exciting if you think about it. Yeah, okay, I get it. You got to pay the bills. You know what? Get out of the big house in the suburbs. Get out of the McMansion. Cut your expenses back. Stop trying to impress the neighbors. Start living. Start going through a cool experience, a new experience. So this next excerpt that I want to play is from a woman named Angela Lee Duckworth. She talks about what she thinks the real key to success is. Not IQ, something a little more gritty. In fact, it is grit. Grit. God, you just kind of want to grip your fingers. I mean, I'm using the word grit, not grip. You just want to grip your fingers. Grit. You know, that sustained, I will not quit. I will stick with this. I will figure it out. I will make it happen. She's done the research. She lays it out.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Grit, passion, and perseverance for very long-term goals. Stamina, sticking with your future day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that reality come true. Of course, she says, grit is living life like a marathon, not a sprint. I have to admit, I love sprinting. I love sprinting. Sprinting does something to the body. The physical act of sprinting does something to the body. The endorphin release is fantastic. But from a grit standpoint, I lead my life not like it's one big hit, not like it's one quick get-rich thing. And doesn't that fit so well with trend following? Trend following is a marathon. There's ups and downs, but over the long haul, trend following grit delivers something really, really nice. A peace of mind and a few extra dollars, perhaps, for your grit. I want everyone to think about education. It's broken. If you're in the middle of it, stop, reflect. If your kids are getting ready for it, stop, reflect. Is it really the best move? Are there alternatives like that first clip, the Fiji Water CEO? Are there alternatives? And look, in this day and age, we have so much access to information. I mean, anybody out there that's over the age of 30, 40, 50, whatever, and wants to talk about, well, we did it our way. Hey, guess what? We did not have access to the internet and information like we have today. You can learn everything you want to learn online, period. So if you want to go to college to play a sport, if you want to go there to get drunk for 4 years straight, if you want to go there to see how many members of the opposite sex that you can shag up with, okay, then be honest and say that's why you're going to college. But to go to college right now, and I guess one more idea too, which I would agree with, that Cole Wilcox mentioned on my podcast recently, the idea of networking. If you have a legitimate shot of networking, okay, go to college. If that's the reason. But don't say it's for learning, because the best learning is not there. It's just not. As I go out, I want to play kind of a cool old song, nice reflective music. Because some people might hear what I have to say on this podcast, and they might think, well, that's great, but I've got bad luck, and nothing ever goes my way, and everything bad happens to me, and Mike, you're being all positive, but and everybody else you've had on these clips today are all positive, but that's just not my life. And, well, okay. You're going to become anything you want to become. If you want to be the person that's down on your luck, no chance, and everything passed you by, you're going to be that person. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.